Good evening, and welcome to the Woburn SEPAC School Committee Candidate Forum. My name is Adam Chapman. I've been volunteering with the SEPAC for over a decade now, and I've been on the board for about half that time as treasurer. I'd like to thank you on behalf of our president, Julie Cotton, and our secretary, Jennifer Young. They've done quite a bit of work behind the scenes. I'd like to thank them for that, and they've left it to me to act as moderator tonight. I'd like to thank them for that, too. While I'm thanking folks, I'd like to thank Anthony Giglio, Paul Hayes, Sandra Quinn, Noah Thomas, and Caden from the high school for all their assistance in helping us bring this event back after a 4-year hiatus. Thanks, as always, to the building and custodial staff and to Woburn Public Media Center. And thanks to all the teachers, administrators, public servants, and residents who've taken time to join us this evening. Tonight's forum will be live streamed and recorded. Before we meet the candidates and get the forum underway, a few words about the SEPAC. The Woburn Special Education Parent Advisory Council, that's what SEPAC stands for, is a state-mandated group that provides resources and support for parents, guardians, and educators of children ages 3 to 22 with special education needs. We're a citywide network of parent volunteers and advocates who work together with Woburn's teachers, administrators, and school committee to provide the community with an educational environment that's innovative, challenging, safe, and nurturing, not just for students who learn differently, but for all students. Tonight's forum will consist of 8 questions, which will be answered by the 6 candidates. The questions were created by taking into account suggestions from the community, with an emphasis on the topics and issues that have been top of mind in Woburn over the past few years. Our goal is to give the candidates an opportunity to educate voters on their individual backgrounds, their electability, and where they stand on the issues that matter to us. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. Candidates, keep an eye on the front row. The yellow card will be your 30-second warning. The red card gives you 10 seconds to wrap up. Now, you don't have to use all of your 2 minutes, but we do ask that you keep it under 2 out of respect to both your fellow candidates and the audience. So, let's get started. We're going to go down the list of our candidates. As you can see them seated before you in alphabetical order, and give them each a minute to introduce themselves, and we'll start with James Austin.
Hello. First, I want to say thank you to Woburn SEPAC for the opportunity to come forth, and I also want to thank all those in attendance and those that are live streaming, whether it be TV or internet. Based off of the time, I want to briefly speak on why I decided to run for school committee. The reason I decided to run was came from a place of anger. I was fed up with young people telling me that they was called the N-word or other discriminating comments or racism comments, and I decided to take action, if you will. I went to a CPAC meeting and learned about if racism was considered bullying, and I found out it was, and I was told that as a dad I can't advocate for them. So I decided, long story short, that I would advocate for them as a school committee member. And so here I am coming forth to be an advocate for our young people.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
We have Pat Chisholm.
Good evening. I want to begin with thanking CPAC for sponsoring this debate this evening, to all the residents who came to the high school, and to those that are tuning in at home. Your interest in the election of your school committee is appreciated and valued. I also want to thank the candidates on the stage. It's not easy putting yourself out there publicly, and I wanted to be with all of you. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Pat Chisholm. I am a lifelong resident of our great city. My late husband and I, Ed, have been homeowners and taxpayers for 43 years. We raised our 4 now adult children here. I am truly vested in this city. All of my children attended Woburn Public Schools and graduated from WMHS. They would continue their education at public colleges and universities, and all are successful in their careers. My hope is that every student who graduates from WMHS will be as fortunate, and I will continue to work hard for this to be a reality for all of our Tanners. And now my 2 granddaughters attend the Goodyear Elementary School, so there is another generation of Chisholm children attending the Woburn schools that allows me the opportunity to be tuned in to the happenings in and around our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Ellen Crowley.
My name is Ellen Crowley. Thank you to everybody who has elected me to the school committee since 2013. It has been my highest honor to serve the children of Woburn and this amazing city. As a legal aid attorney, I spend my days advocating for children with severe mental illness and life-threatening medical conditions. I am grateful that I can bring this knowledge and experience to the school committee. I want to commend my fellow candidates who sit up here with me for running for school committee. I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of your dedication to Woburn. In the past 10 years, I have led the school committee and successfully advocated and obtained millions of dollars in education funding, above and beyond the city's recommendation. I have led the school committee at a time when schools were closed. I have successfully negotiated and obtained the right for every school building to have a school adjustment counselor, which positions that cannot be cut. And I've been a leader in helping the city and the school system navigate the growing mental health crisis and behavioral crisis among our learners. Together, we have created a rigorous school district with science and technology programs that gain envy from other districts. Our science and technology programs are vertically aligned across the district, and I'm very proud of that. This election is crucial. Our progress in the last 10 years hangs in the balance with our ESSER funding, and I ask for your vote so we can continue to fight for our kids.
Thank you, Ellen. And Maria Delagrati.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marie Delagrati. Thank you to SEPAC for having me here tonight and hosting all of us. Here's a little bit about me. My family and I have lived in Woburn since 2008. My husband Mark and I have been together for 27 years. We have 2 children. Our son Dante is 16 and is a junior here at Woburn Memorial High School. Our daughter Giovanna is 13 and in the 8th grade at the Joyce. We have 2 puppies, Louie and Pina. My husband Mark and I own and operate a Muay Thai and mixed martial arts academy, Sit Yatong, Boston. We've been operating our business in Somerville since 1996. Our facility is known worldwide for our martial arts training and for our martial arts instruction and our techniques in training. Since being in business, we've worked with people from all walks of life with different backgrounds and goals, whether it's to advance their professional or amateur fight careers or to learn martial arts, or for someone who's overcome a personal struggle, such as weight loss, addiction, depression, or trauma. As a parent, I've always been involved with the schools as a volunteer and a highly active team mom for whatever was needed to get done. Ever since my kids have both been in school and in sports. For instance, I was a parade float parent when my son was in the 5th grade, and for anybody who's done this, they know that that is definitely not an easy feat. I have also organized groups on Facebook for a lot of the parents. I started the Harold Wyman Moms, which now boasts about 400 parents whose kids attend that school. I also have other Facebook groups for the parents of the kids that are in the same grades as my children. I was also responsible for organizing a fundraiser when my son was in the 8th grade during COVID. Nothing was being done for the kids, so I started organizing a fundraiser, and I raised enough money where I collected enough money, and we got gift certificates for all the 200 kids that were in his grade. And then we got the gift certificates to 2 local Woburn businesses. During the time of COVID is when my concerns for things that were happening in our schools was taking a bigger interest for me, and to see and ask more questions and to see what was going on. My goals as a school committee member are many, but one of my main focuses will be to try and reinvigorate the school system in all the areas. We as a community have numerous important stakeholders in our public schools, such as our children, the parents, the caregivers, our teachers, the school administration, as well as our local leaders. If we all focus on improving a few things, then I do truly believe that we can get our schools moving in a positive and a more prosperous direction.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Andrew Lipset.
Thank you to the CPAC, to Julie, to Adam, to Jen, to my fellow school committee members and candidates up on the stage. This isn't easy, and thank you all for doing it. And to the audience, thank you for coming out tonight. This is really important, and I'm glad to be able to share tonight with you. My name is Andrew Lipset. I've served on the Woburn School Committee for almost 4 years now, and I'm running for re-election. This is also my 15th year teaching high school history, alongside my wife Emily, who's in back there. She and I teach at the same school, on the same hallway, sometimes even in the same classroom. And we're the parents of 2 amazing children, Malcolm White students in the kindergarten and in 5th grade. I'm running for many reasons. Our district has had a challenging year that included a strike and a divisive budget, a difficult budget. And I hope that I can play a role in helping to build and rebuild some of the bridges from those. Woburn's also experiencing changes that present both challenges and opportunities. I believe my experience as a committee member, as a teacher, as a public education advocate, and as a parent can be valuable in guiding us forward so that we can maintain and develop programs that meet the needs and support the aspirations of all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And finally, Jesse Wetzel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much to the SEPAC. Thank you to my fellow candidates, those out in the audience, and those also watching from home. I really appreciate the interest, so thank you. Just a little bit about myself. My husband and I bought our first home here in Woburn in 2015, and Woburn really felt like a small town, despite it being a town of over 40,000 people. I grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, basically in Canada. I like to say there's more deers than people, which I believe to be a fact. It's never been checked, but I believe this is true. And I never anticipated moving to the East Coast, finding a place that had some of those same small town values that I had in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. In the UP Upper Peninsula, you knew what car somebody drove, their cousin's middle name, their last name, you knew everything. And here you can go to Market Basket and you might see someone that lives next door, or you might talk to your neighbor who lives in her grandmother's house. And I think that's one of the things that's appealing to us. And I think it's also appealing to families as they're looking to set roots and build a home. I feel Woburn is very welcoming, and I think we should be really proud of that. I have 3 daughters in the school, well, 2 in the school system, and 1 is 20 months. So my oldest daughter, Addison, is in 1st grade at the Goodyear Elementary, and my middle daughter, Aurora, is at the public preschool. She's in her 2nd year, and then Aubrey's my youngest, a future tanner, and she's 20 months old. They love school and love the experience, and it's wonderful to see that. And about me, my desire for service really started at a young age. I'm a lifelong member of Girl Scouts. I enlisted in the Army when I was a junior in high school, and I did basic training between my junior and senior year of high school, and then I came back. So it was a really fun tale to tell about my experience that summer. And I've always had this need to serve, this desire to help. And that's one of the reasons I'm running for school committee. I'm also very active in our community. I participate in the Goodyear PTO and the Reef PTO, as well as SEPAC meetings, as my oldest daughter is on an individual education plan, an IEP, so she's in special education. And I really just wanted to kind of take that next step and figure out where I can really serve the school. I have a background in both education. I have a Master's of Education from UMass Boston, specifically teacher of division and care, and I have a business background. My undergrad is from Michigan State University, and that's in hospitality business. So I think kind of those talents combined can really be a good asset to the school community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse. And we'll get into the questions now. We will continue in order as we did with introductions, but we'll switch it up each time. Someone will answer the question first so that James doesn't have to answer the question first for all 8 questions. That wouldn't be very fair. The first question, and we'll start with you, James. What skills or experience in your personal or professional life do you feel you'll bring to the position of school committee member?
I feel the skills that I bring to the table are, I guess, numerous in a sense. First, I'm a father, and the skills that I've gained as a dad, I feel like are skills that are transferable. For years, I've worked in nonprofit sector, and much of my background comes from the area of community development, working with individuals in the community. Those are the skills that I feel I bring. Also, community relations. Something I really take pride in is connecting with people. That's something I really enjoy doing. I try to connect with young people on a personal level, connect with families, and these are the areas that I think can bring to the table to assist me in the school community.
Pat Chisholm?
23 years sitting on the board. I think that brings the experience that we've dealt with some tough times, some great times. We've had some renovations to schools. We've built new schools. I think that being a mom of 4 that I've seen go through the school, and I've seen what's worked for them and some struggles that they've had along the way. I think that we have to have the school system work together to create a good partnership, and I think that that's something we've been involved with, and we've worked very hard as a school board the past few years trying to get more parental involvement. And I think that through my whole years of my kids from the time they were kindergarten on through, I was a member of the PTO, and I was a member of the founding people of the citywide PTO back in the day. So I think that experience counts, and I can bring 23 years to the table.
Thank you, Pat. Ellen Crowley.
Thank you, Adam. I think probably the most prominent experience I have is as a parent. I have parented 5 children throughout various stages through the Woburn Public Schools, and that has given me a lot of information about what the schools need and how to advocate for kids. As I mentioned before in my opening, I'm a legal aid attorney. My whole job is dedicated to advocating for kids, particularly kids made the most vulnerable by different aspects in their life, and quite frankly, a lot of them are suffering. I am a foster parent, and so therefore I've seen the other side of what it's like to raise a child with severe needs that is combating daily issues of trauma. And through all these life experiences, I think the most important aspect I have and the most important piece that I can bring to the committee is empathy, understanding what humans are going through. And I also have this skill of building consensus. I believe that negotiation and coming up with a shared vision is the right thing to do when we're talking about schools. So thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Maria Delagrati.
Hi. So some of the skills I feel like I possess, I'm a positive person. I am a person who gets things done once I set my mind to seeing something through or accomplishing something. I'm going to get it done, whether it's a new way, an old way. I don't always, I'm very open to seeing things through other people's eyes as, through my work experience, through my business. I've dealt with many people. So I feel that that is something that I have, that I do work well with other people, and I am open to seeing things through other people's eyes. So just because I see something one way, or you may see it this way or another way, doesn't mean that if we have a common goal that we're not going to be able to get to that goal together.
Thank you, Maria. Andrew Lipset.
Thank you very much. So I've spent a career in public education. I spent a lifetime in public education. I attended public schools. After college, I worked a number of jobs in the education sector, either in education nonprofits or in textbook publishing, or all manner of things. And then I found my true calling as a high school history teacher, and I've done that for the last 15 years of my life. I've also been an advocate for public education, an activist for public education. I have advocated on the state level, I've advocated on the local level for the kinds of things that our public schools need in order to thrive, in order to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our kids. And I've experienced the schools as a parent. I've watched my kids grow in the Woburn Public Schools. I've watched them learn. I've watched them meet friends. I've watched them thrive in the Woburn Public Schools. So, and of course, as a school committee member, for 4 of the more difficult years I think anyone's ever served on a school committee. Colleen Cormier and I had the distinct pleasure of joining the committee about 3 months before the world shut down. And so we learned a lot from that experience. So, in that regard, I've seen the ways that our schools operate. I've seen the ways that many schools operate from a really direct perspective, from a lot of different perspectives. That's another strength that I try to bring, or I hope that I bring, which is the ability to listen, to hear the perspectives of people who are different from me, people who disagree with me. I try to hear people out. I try to make sure that I think about where they're coming from, and how they may see the world differently than me, and how we can try to make some common ground on that. So that's what I hope to bring. So thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. And Jesse Wetzel.
Thanks, Adam. I think, obviously, first and foremost would be being a parent, being a mom to 3 wonderful daughters has given me a very unique perspective into the school system as I'm seeing and living it every day. I'm talking to parents, whether that be at pickup, drop-off, or in any of the various clubs that we participate in, and really getting a first-hand knowledge of what's happening in the classrooms, what's liked, what's not liked, what maybe we can just do better on. So I think that's a big plus. Also, my education, as I mentioned, I have a Master's of Education, so I do have a special ed background. I feel I can bring that as well to the table. I'm a big believer in communication, whether that be written or oral. I think it's important to get our message out there, and everyone has that same message that they want to talk about, they want to communicate. We're all here for the good of the kids. And that's what I think I can bring to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Let's move on to the next question, and we'll start with Pat Chisholm. What do you see as the top concerns of parents and guardians of students with disabilities in Woburn?
I'm sure there's several. I think that we have a budget is a concern because sometimes when we have programs that we want to initiate and bring to the CPAC and bring to the school system, it doesn't make the final cut unless it's something that's mandated to be provided. And I think we need to do a little bit more to bring the kids together with inclusion into the school system and make sure that they all feel welcomed at all times. And I think parents need to be welcomed also and realize that just because they're not in the mainstream, that they're not excluded from anything that goes on in the school system, no matter what. And I think that we have a fear of when we send our kids outside the school system, if we're not able to service them within the city, that they're not allowed to be part of the Woburn public school system. And that I just want to make sure that people are always aware that that is not the fact, and we want them to be included by all means in everything possible.
Pat, thank you. Ellen Crowley.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. And feel free, any candidate that needs a repeat, and they'll get longer as we move on, so I'll probably actually get in the habit of maybe repeating them every other. But yes, what do you see as the top concerns of parents and guardians of students with disabilities in Woburn?
The top concerns for parents with disabilities is that it's my impression that when I'm sitting with a parent at a team meeting, which I do quite frequently, the parent wants a system of data collection that is robust and that the parent can count on. So it's really important to have infrastructure in place in which data collection is the most important thing, so that when a parent is at a meeting and is really looking for progress, that data is right there at the team chair's right there at the team chair's desk. Thank you. In addition, I think that when we talk about inclusion, we need meaningful inclusion. We need to make sure that when we talk about children, we're talking about all children, and we're not dividing special education children with general ed children. And we are all of our learners are important. I think it's important when we talk about that on our level at the school committee, we always talk about all learners in an inclusive way. I think that the parents want experienced team chairs that know how to navigate conflict and know how to really deliver a team meeting that they can count on. And also empathy. When you're sitting at a table and you're hearing about your child making progress and doing extraordinary things, it can be very, very vulnerable. And I think that sometimes there's a certain process that happens at the team meetings, but we need to remember that parents are experiencing what could be some level of trauma when they come to talk about their children. And lastly is communication. When you have a question about your child, you need to have an email returned. It is crucial to have that person that you can go to with any thoughts that you have about your child. And of course, you need to be participating in your team meetings. Parent participation in the IDEA in Massachusetts, all over the law, parent participation is the most important part of education planning for children with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Maria Delagrati.
I think I'm going to keep this I would think that a parent's main concern is that their child is getting the things that they need on a daily basis in school, like making sure that they're getting everything they need every day that they go to school. So it's a more of a consistent structure so that the child is adapting well to the things that they need in class, whatever the teacher has to provide for them, and that they're able to get into that consistency where, I know sometimes the teachers may be overwhelmed and they might have to stop and, do something special with that student. But I think a parent would want to make sure that their child is getting the stuff that they need on a daily basis when they're coming to school, not just on certain days where it's a little slower or a little bit busier, but where there's constant consistency every day.
Thank you, Maria. Andrew.
So, I'd echo a lot of what my fellow candidates have already said. I think communication is really deeply important. I think that, parents want to know what's happening with their child. They want to know the people who are delivering care and service for their children. They want to feel trust in those people. They want to know that their concerns are being heard, that they have a place at the table. They want to be met with empathy. They want to believe that the people sitting around the table with them have their kids' best interests at They want to know that the IEPs are being met. They want to know that the services that they are eligible for are being delivered. They also want to know, and I think, one thing that we have to, I think, really remember when we talk about special education is that it is a difficult and complex world to navigate. It is not an easy thing for most parents. It is especially and doubly hard for parents who lack access, for parents who aren't used to that particular setting, for parents who don't speak English, for parents who work 3 jobs. I mean, this is a very, very difficult world. It's a difficult world for someone who has all the time in the world. And it's especially tough for someone who has other barriers too. So we need to make that easier. We need to work on our communication. We need to work on making sure that we are proactive in getting students and getting families the kinds of accommodations that they need, the kind of care that they need. There's a billion more things. We need money, we need staffing, we need facilities. But I think from a family perspective, the need to feel included, the need to feel supported, and the need to feel reached out to are really very much top of the list.
Thank you, Andrew Lipset. Jesse Wetzel.
Thank you. I think parents want to walk into a room when they're going into an IEP meeting. I think they want to feel safe. I think they want to feel listened to and heard and respected. I don't think they want to walk into a room where they feel it's adversarial or the decision's already been made for their student and what's going to happen. They want clear communication. They want to know, what is their student getting at school? What services are they getting? Are they getting the services listed on their IEP? And if they're not, what's the school district doing to get those services for that student? We want to keep all these kids as best as we can in district, and the way to do that is to follow these IEPs and to make sure the services are being provided that is listed legally on the IEP. I think if parents get that, that's very helpful. They feel good, they feel confident, they feel safe in sending their children to school because they know their kiddo is getting what they need. They know their child has access to the curriculum just like every other kid in the classroom does. And that's what we should be doing as educators and as a society. And I think that parents really just want to feel accepted, and they want to know that their kid's being accepted at school, that they're going into the classroom and they have friends that they can talk to. They have someone to sit with at lunch and someone to play with at recess. I think if we can do that, I think a parent would be very pleased and happy to have their kid in every day, and hopefully their kid then comes home with wonderful stories to tell about what they learned and what they did at school. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. And lastly, James Austin.
It's kind of nice to go last. I would say, can you repeat the question?
Sure. What do you see as the top concerns of parents and guardians of students with disabilities in Woburn?
I would say, speaking from a personal standpoint, top concern is feeling as if we are part of a team. One of the hardest things my wife and I had to deal with is going into meetings in reference to my child, IEP, was not feeling as if we were wanted there. It was almost like we were treated like we're providing you something, you should be okay with what we give you and deal with it. And so with that feeling, as someone mentioned earlier, being a parent that's never been in this situation, you don't know how to navigate, you don't know how to maneuver, you don't know how to go through the system. So when you're a parent and you're dealing with that, it's frustrating. And for me as a dad, I felt like a failure, like my child is not learning or not on the curve that she should be. So what am I doing wrong? And so when I go to a meeting and I'm not treated as if I should be there, I kind of result backwards, and at times you might get frustrated. Not to mention just having access to services, being able to receive adequate services for your child. I think a lot of times we don't know what we're entitled to. And so when we don't receive or we don't know, and then maybe a year or two later you find out, oh, I could have got that 2 years ago. Why is that? And so I think those two things are very needed, and communication is also on my top list here. Not being heard, not receiving emails, or not receiving phone calls when we're supposed to is really difficult for a parent, especially when they're dealing with their child that is receiving services. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Let's move on to the third question, and we'll start with Ellen this time. Ellen Crowley, what do you think it would take for Woburn's test scores to reach the level of some comparable districts?
So Woburn has now written a comprehensive literacy plan. And I think that is the first step. Reading, of course, is the cornerstone of learning. So if we can get all of our learners to be on the grade level in literacy, then we are making great strides toward the test scores. Additionally, we need to continue to invest in behavioral and social emotional support. Behavior and social emotional support have a direct impact on test scores, and I think we've seen that in the last couple of years. So I would say that following the literacy plan with fidelity, and that means, of course, advocating for funding to continue to retain the reading specialists in the district, because you cannot have a literacy plan and not keep the reading specialists. Secondly is the social, emotional, behavioral support, and then, of course, we just need continuing funding. So if we cannot be cutting programs, we cannot be increasing class sizes, we cannot be cutting teachers, we need to keep class sizes at a very reasonable level so that all of the learners are getting the instruction. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Maria Delagrati.
So can you just repeat?
Absolutely. What do you think it would take for Woburn's test scores, talking about, the Woburn's test scores to reach the level of some comparable districts?
Okay. Honestly, I think everybody just needs to dig deep and step it up. Change your attitude. If you're coming to school, whether it's the teachers, the kids, we need to just have like a refreshing attitude. We just came off a serious strike. I think a lot of people, feel a certain way about certain things, and I think we just need to come in, just reinvigorate ourselves together as a community, whether it's the teachers, and I'm sure it's hard, you might have a bad day, but I feel like we have to all, within each one of us, we have to dig deep, whether it starts from the school committee, the teachers, the parents, whatever it is, we just need to step it up, change our attitudes, and look at things from a new approach, get some new blood in there, do what we got to do. I mean, our test scores, they're not that great. So I don't know, from sitting from here, I'm coming in as a parent who's concerned with things that are going on in the school. So, I'm trying to look at things from a different perspective, but it's just, we all have to dig deep. We have to get up every day and just do the best job that we can. I don't know what it entails, but, I'm in this learning process right now as I'm running for school committee, but I think it's within all of us. Every person that's involved with the schools, giving the kids when they come into school a smile, just having a refreshing attitude, keeping your personal opinions out of the classrooms, out of the schools, and just staying focused on what needs to be done to get the grades in a better direction.
Thank you, Maria. Andrew Lipset talking about what it would take for Woburn's test scores to reach the level of some of the comparable districts.
You're baiting me with a question about test scores, and I know that you are. Anyone who's known me longer than 15 minutes knows that I don't put a ton of stock in a district's test scores, and certainly not in an individual child's. And when we say test scores, we need to define our terms, right? Are we talking about MCAS? Are we talking about math testing? Are we talking about access testing? What are the test scores that we're talking about? My assumption is when we talk about district level testing, we're talking about MCAS. So what I would say is that first, that should not necessarily be our first measure of student success. It should not necessarily be our first measure of district success. There's a need for some kind of data collection. There's a need for our understanding of how our district stacks up in meaningful ways to comparable districts. It's also worth remembering who our comparable districts are. Woburn is very much a changing demographic right now. When we talk about comparable districts, we're talking more often about places like Peabody or potentially Saugus or Danvers. Communities that are seeing demographic change, communities that are seeing large number of students who come to us not learning English, who come to us from low-income backgrounds. What we know about test scores, more than almost anything else, especially with MCAS, is what they measure best is the zip code that they are delivered in. What they measure best is the average income level. And I now realize I've blown through a minute and a half without actually addressing the substance of the question. So I'm going to go ahead and do that quickly. If we want to really do the best for our kids, we need to make sure that we are investing in the programs, in the teachers, in the staff, in the classroom materials that are going to do exactly that. We need to make sure that we are keeping our funding up. We need to make sure that we are increasing our support for social emotional learning and all sorts of other
Thank
good
you,
stuff.
Andrew.
See, you were baiting me.
Passionate. Jesse Wetzel.
Thank you. I know testing is the reality in Massachusetts. We have the MCAS. That's how it is right now. Maybe it won't be forever, but that's how it is now, and that's something that we have to deal with. But should we be comparing ourselves to another district next door? I don't think so. We always tell our kids you shouldn't compare you to another child, so why should we be doing that on an even bigger level when we're taking a group of students and their scores and comparing them to somebody else? It's really not an accurate representation of what the child knows. It really is just how well they take a test, and then it's forcing our teachers to teach to this test versus teaching subjects that really are critically more important as they get older and want to become productive members of society. Not as an adult, we don't sit and go to work and take a test. We go and we do work. So I think that that's what we should be having our students do in school, not trying to figure out how to take this test that causes anxiety and stress for third graders. I was talking with a mom a couple weeks back, and her third grader last year took the test. She was stressed out, couldn't sleep, didn't want to eat, and this is a third grader. It's not fair that we ask them to do that. So I guess in answer to the question, can we be as good as another district? I think we could be as good as we can be here in Woburn, and I think that's fantastic. We have phenomenal families, we have phenomenal teachers, administration, staff, and I think we do the work, and we can certainly make that happen, but we're doing it for us, not for somebody around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. James Austin.
So for nearly 15 years, I served as a missionary, urban missionary, working with traumatic people that have a background with a high risk, and I tell them to not compare themselves to others. So that question, comparing ourselves to another city, is really challenging, especially with young people. But I would say to directly go after that question is we need to acknowledge what the issue is. If the test scores are low, maybe dig a little deeper, find out why is that. Maybe it's not that a child is not smart enough. Maybe there's issues at home. Maybe they're not coming to school fed. Maybe they're staying up all night because of issues with a dad that's an alcoholic or some issue. So trying to get to the root of the issue and digging a little deeper and maybe finding out the reason why the child is scoring lower in other cities rather than comparing the other cities. I think that'll be a better approach to get to the root and really dig in that area. And maybe once we solve those issues of that young person, maybe they'll be able to perform a little better. Maybe it could be simple as tutoring, or maybe it could be simple as having their needs met. Maybe they're having their voice heard, and it can help them to improve their studies. So I would say that to dig a little deeper and acknowledge what the issue is first.
Thank you, James. And lastly, Pat Chisholm.
I believe the MCAS is only a snapshot in a child's education, and I think sometimes we put too much into that. And I think that Dr. Wells would probably, if he's listening, is going to be jumping out of his seat. But data is something that we can learn from and we can use, but we should not make it the only thing that we judge, a student on, or a classroom on, or a grade level on. There's times that kids can just have a really bad day, and it should not be valued as their only test score. I think it can be used as a positive for when we find out that we need to do better as a district, and we need to be able to give the additional support to the teachers, and we need to provide extra help for the kids that are struggling. But I don't think it should be something that we totally judge movement on. And I think it's unfair when a kid comes to school and it's the day that they're having their MCAS, and there was a story told to me that morning the student got up and their gerbil had died. And do you think that kid coming to school is going to do the best on that MCAS? It's not going to happen. But they may have been a great student and they do really well, but they're going to come back and not have the best results. And that should not be something that we rely on to judge the school system or a teacher or a class or anything else. I just think that we need to make some adjustments to MCAS and learn from it. But the literacy program that we're doing, I think that Ms. Crowley talked about, is something that we should be proud of in the city, and hopefully that will help all of our students.
Thank you, Pat. Maria, we'll start with you with this question. It's a bit longer. There's a setup, I should say, and then there's a question. That's how the rest of these will be. So I'll try to do my best to lay it out and repeat when needed. One of the most significant yearly duties of the school committee is developing a budget. Due to COVID-19's impact on school budgets, the federal government created the elementary and secondary school relief funds. They've been referred to tonight, the ESSER funds. Those funds will be depleted within our most recent fiscal year 24 budget, but the needs of our school district in a post-COVID world continue. So, all of that being said, as a school committee member, how will you balance the increasing budgetary needs of our district with the funding availability in our city?
Maybe, I don't know, look for other means of, raising money for the schools, trying to get additional funds and ways that we can raise money. I mean, I don't know too much about the budget stuff and how it all works just yet. Like if we're limited to just what the city allows us to get for funding. I don't know what the rules are in regards to, looking at other means of getting money into the schools, so, that's something that I'd like to learn more about the budgeting and how that all works. So just if there's other means of, revenue for us to get for the schools and ways that we can do that. So it's kind of short.
It's okay. Short is fine. Andrew.
So this is obviously a topical issue right now, coming off of a divisive budget in which we were not able to add as much as the committee and the administration felt that we needed. When we are talking about budgets, our school funding comes from a lot of different sources. We are seeing an annual increase right now in our Chapter 70 funding due to the Student Opportunity Act, which has allowed us a little bit more flexibility. But at the same time, our needs are growing a lot faster than what we are able to add. They're growing a lot faster than what the city has been able to budget for us. And this is something that I think we really need to spend some time talking about and thinking about as a community. Part of this is process. The process for our budget has not met our needs. We are delivered a number too late. That number is often changed at the last moment. It doesn't give administration or the committee time to make the right kinds of decisions, to really think about how we can best construct a budget. It makes us do it on the fly. And part of what we saw this past spring was a result of that. But beyond that, I do sympathize with City Hall in that we simply don't have, I know on the surface it seems as though Woburn is a community swimming in money, right? We have large reserve funds. We have money that seems to just sort of be sitting in a room somewhere. That's not money that can be used for operating costs. And there are a lot of good reasons for that. It runs out a lot faster than you might think. What we really need to think about in the city of Woburn is how we approach our revenue. Because as we change, as we grow, as our needs increase, we are going to need more money in our schools. We're going to need more money in our fire department, in our police department, in all of our city services. But our schools are where it hits first. And we are going to need to see more revenue and more money coming into our schools if we're going to meet our needs.
Thank you, Andrew Lipsett. Jesse Wetzel, I'll repeat the question. As a school committee member, how will you balance the increasing budgetary needs of our district with the funding availability in our city?
Thank you, Adam. I think we need to first and foremost increase the transparency and the process at which we do the budget. I think if people need to know what's going on, how that is happening, there's a lot of people that have opinions and that might be able to help. I think just really communication is key in that regard. I also think Woburn is a very diverse city, and our schools as such are very diverse. We qualify for a lot of outside funding because of that. Woburn has a right to win various different grants that the state has because of how diverse we are. One of them being the CHIPS Act, which deals with equity in internet access. All you have to do is apply, and then that internet access can go to families that don't currently have internet in their homes, that their kids can then go and do their homework. I think if we can really get creative and figure out where this money is and how we can use it in our community for our schools or for anything else that we might need it. As Andrew mentioned, we're a growing city. There's a lot of areas of the city that need money, and there's never too much money, so we need to go out there and find that money and then be creative on using that money inside of our city. Thank you.
Jesse, thank you. James Austin.
It's been said, I think, a few times is one method is to look for grants. Somebody coming from a nonprofit background, many a times I had to run programs without money. And so creativity had to come from somewhere. I had to think about how can we produce something with nothing. So one way is looking for grants. Another way is to partner with other cities or towns and learn best practices. How are you guys? How are they producing? How are they receiving the income, or what are they doing that's working for them, and learn from them rather than try to reinvent the wheel. Come up with ideas that are outside the box. One idea I've mentioned numerous times is a program called Men at Work. The whole idea is to look for men in the community to be able to serve within the schools and provide, presence. I've learned over the years is there's power in presence, and when there's people and community members that are available, it can actually help morale. It can offer support for the teachers and offer support for the students. We may not be able to pay them, but their presence being here would be greatly appreciated. I would assume. Another idea I would love to see brought to the school is City Year. So City Year is an organization in Boston where an individual will become an AmeriCorps member for a year, and they'll serve within a school. And I think this is something that we can actually bring. I don't think it'll cost as much as it would cost if you was to hire a paraprofessional. You may even get 5 City Year members for the cost of one paraprofessional, and they will serve for the year. Those are out-of-the-box ideas and thoughts to help revenue and actually bring some people into the school that can serve. These are ideas that I would go for, just shooting out of the box.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Pat, again, we're talking about how you'd balance the increasing budgetary needs of our districts with the funding availability in Woburn.
Yeah, well, part of my closing statement was going to be about the budget this year. I think it's going to be a really tough one. I think that losing the ESSER grant of about $1.8 million has to be absorbed. But I think transparency and people be involved from the get-go. We did talk at Finance about starting the budget process now so that we know that, because we know we're going to lose that, and there's vital positions in that grant. At least I believe they're vital positions and they cannot be lost. I think that we need to be able to support the people and let everybody know. We do have a councilman that comes to our meeting so that he reports back to the council so that they're aware that we're starting to have these talks and that we need to be able to provide the education that we need in our schools. We need the support to stay there. We need the programs to stay there. We can't make these cuts and just go for it. But at the same time, we do need to be cognizant of the fact that we're the biggest part of the budget. We're about 63% of the budget for the city. But we also have to remember there is fire that's looking for stuff and police that are looking for stuff. But we have to take care of our kids. And we have to provide the education that they need to be successful. And our city is growing, our population is growing. So I think that the earlier we get out there and the more talk we have with City Hall, and they know that the demands that we're going to need to have to be met, that it's going to be easier as long as we're all on board and we work together. This will happen. Thank you.
Pat Chisholm, thank you, and we'll wrap up with Ellen Crowley.
So when I first got on the school committee, we would be asking for like one position from City Hall. I remember we were asking for like one BCBA, and we were not able to fund one BCBA. And now, it was basically in 2018 when the superintendent developed a strategic plan. What it did was it laid out the vision for the whole entire school system and where we want to be in 3 to 5 years. So in doing that, we really created a community buy-in into what we want to do in the school district. So then when we asked for funding, it was simply not based on need. It was based on a shared vision of where we want the school to be. So that's exactly what we need to do, what Ms. Chisholm said, is that from early on, we need to be very transparent with what our needs are for the next following year. Then we need to get community buy-in. We need to have partnerships with the city council so they know when we're coming to ask for 4 additional paraprofessionals for multi-language learners that we are going to need them because of the trends they saw last year. And when they see us coming asking for 8 reading specialists to be rolled into the school committee budget, they know that we have been needing those for 3 years because of our literacy plan. So it's all about community buy-in, transparency, and open, flowing communication between the school committee, the mayor, and the city council. And everybody needs to be rowing in the boat at the same time that we all want our children to succeed. Because it can't just be school committee asking for things. It has to be everybody knowing why we need them. So when we say we need 8 reading specialists, we will say because The 6th graders didn't complete their MCAS scores the way we wanted to. They didn't do well in their open response, and we give them data to say that this is exactly what we're targeting with the reading specialists. So I think that if we have a shared vision,
Thank you,
all
Ellen.
rowing in the same boat.
Gently down the stream, merrily, merrily, merrily.
Thank you.
We all know that one. Thank you all so far. We're at the halfway point. Take a sip of water if you need one. Andrew, I'll let you start with our 5th question. This one has a bit of context and some data with it, so I'll lead with that and then I'll get to the question. According to the CDC, LGBTQ plus and transgender youth experience more bullying and violence and are more likely to experience depression and other mental health challenges than their peers. Additionally, the Human Rights Campaign found that 36% of LGBTQ plus students also have a disability, representing a significant increase in disability over the general population. Including LGBTQ plus supportive policies and practices decreases students' emotional distress, violence and harassment toward them, and suicidal thoughts and behaviors experienced by them. So, all of that being said, what kind of policies do you believe our school district should implement to best support and protect LGBTQ students in Woburn Public Schools?
Thank you for this question. This is, look, one of the single most important thing a school can do is keep its kids safe. What we are talking about right now is a population of students, transgender students, who are at greater risk than any other group of kids in our buildings. They're at risk because of societal factors. They're at risk because they are not seen as people. They're at risk because they are denied, in many cases, the care that they need. Our schools can be a haven for children, and they must be a haven for children. We have to make sure that we are, first of all, investing in social emotional assistance. We need social workers. We need we need people in schools who are safe places for our kids to go to. The work that, for example, the Spectrum Club has done at the high school has been really, really inspiring in terms of providing that for our kids. But we need beyond simply that. We need to make sure that we are using sort of gender-affirming language, that we are using the kinds of supports that we know work. We need to take a look at our health curriculum. I think we've done an admirable job in sort of creating a health curriculum at the high school and middle school that support our kids. We need to continue to work on that. I know the state has come out recently with new guidelines on health and physical education in general, but piece of that has been around gender identity and around how we keep our kids safe and how we best serve our kids. So I think there are a lot of things that we need to do, but this is absolutely a priority and something that if we do it right, can have a really, really positive effect on the lives of kids who often really struggle.
Thank you, Andrew. Jesse Wetzel.
Thank you. I think first and foremost, those kids need to feel safe when they come to school. They need to feel like they're welcomed, accepted, that they're not going to go in and get name-called or worse. I think that starts with training and education, with educating our teachers on best practices and things that they can do to make these kiddos feel more safe and more welcomed, and then that trickles down to students. And maybe that you have a student leader that also helps lead that education, so there's kind of like a peer model for these other students where kids can just come and learn. I think a lot of times people will say nasty things because they don't fully understand. So if we can help our kids and parents and anyone in our community understand, then they have a better idea of what who this person is and are better able to be okay with that. I also think that we need a safe space for these kids to go, whether that be like some sort of a therapist at school or a calming quarter, someplace where they can go if they're feeling big feelings, there's something going on, they just don't feel comfortable, they can exit and go to this space, and it's okay, they can just leave, no questions asked. I think we need that for a variety of reasons, not just our kids in the LGBTQIA community, but really in general. But I think that's something we can start with. Also, it was interesting, I didn't know the 30% have a disability fact. I'm curious if we're getting those kids assessed? Are we figuring out what they need on top of all that social emotional? What other things do they need in terms of their education to fully succeed? I don't have the answers to that because this is a new piece of information for me, but it is something I'm curious about and I think we should dive a little deeper into. But first and foremost, safety and welcoming environment where they feel comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. James Austin.
First, I would say that I believe that all people are valuable, and they should be treated as such, regardless of their background, sex, creed, or income, or race, or anything of that nature. As I said in my intro, the reason I ran was motivated by anger. I was angry at how our young people were being treated, not just kids being called the N-word, but kids being treated differently because of their mental disability or sexual preference. And it frustrated me so much that I'm here, out of my comfort zone, standing up for other people's children. And from my experience, when I've heard that someone has said something that's derogatory, I didn't see or hear anything done. And I would check in with the kids. What happened? Nothing. They told me, enough. The kids would say to me, oh, they told me there's only but so much we can do. And that's just so frustrating. So I would love to see the policy enforced as far as the discipline. Maybe have some procedures that's clear. And I'm not sure I feel like it's not there. If it is, from my experience, it's not being utilized to the full extent. I don't think suspending a child necessarily is effective. I think holding them accountable, having conversations, restorative justice. I think sitting down and get to the root. I also have come to learn that young people don't always say things because they're racist, or a lot of times kids say things because they want to hurt somebody, because hurt people. And so if we can get to the root and really sit down and dive into these conversations, maybe we can get to have a better day. Our kids come to school and deal with so much with homework and MCAS. They don't need to come to school and have to deal with being bullied. So this is something that's really at my forefront, my heart, and young people should be able to come to school and feel safe. So I really would love to dive into the policies and procedures as far as bullying and things of that nature. So,
Okay. Thank you, James. And just to repeat the question, Pat, for the rest of the group, what kinds of policies do you believe our school district should implement to best support and protect LGBTQ plus students in Woburn Public Schools?
The first thing that I'd like to say is acceptance has to be there. Every kid should be able to come to school and not feel like they're going to be treated any differently, no matter what. So acceptance is huge. And I know at the high school with the Spectrum Club, it's been growing. It's come to us a couple of times at the committee level. And they're getting to be known throughout the school, and they're not somebody that's a different group and has to be treated differently and meeting at different times. They've had people all sorts of people have gone to those Spectrum Clubs and they're joining together, and that's what we need to see. People come together and stop just singling people out or labeling people or making them feel that they're not a part of the community itself. I think we do need to make sure that we have plenty of guidance counselors and social emotional people that can counsel the kids if they need to have it. And it's not just them, it's other students as well. Somebody might not just feel welcome in their own skin, especially at the high school level. So I think that policies we have and procedures that are being done, and Colleen does a great job of going through our policies and making sure that we're up to speed as far as legally we're taking care of what we need to do. But it is something definitely that we need to work on. It needs to be addressed, and it will be. But I think that if the more students accept each other without labeling, I think the better we're going to be.
Pat, thank you. Ellen Crowley.
Thank you. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, but I'm having a hard time thinking of policies that the school committee should be implementing. What I'm really thinking about is just creating just a completely supportive atmosphere on our level, making sure that as we speak about students, that we make sure we use the right words and we use kind language and inclusive language. But I'm really thinking about on the local level, meaning the principals, giving them the tools that they need in order to set the climate in their schools that's appropriate. I know that the school committee just learned the joys of responsive classroom, where students every morning are engaged in a sort of a face-to-face learning environment. And I think it's those kinds of social emotional support networks that we can do in the district that will open up those conversations and allow children to feel safer. Also making sure that every building has someone that students can go to. Every student just needs one person, and that can be life-saving. But overall, I'm not quite sure what policies, but I will say that for me, I would never oppose a policy that would support our trans students or any students expressing any compilation of gender. I think it's really important, but I'm not quite sure exactly what policies that the school committee should be doing. I think it has to be done at the school level.
Thank you, Ellen. Maria.
So, I mean, policies, I think, learning, again, I don't know what the individual, is there any policies in place now? I mean, I would like to hope and believe that a lot of the kids are not being bullied. I mean, you would think that the kids in today's day and age, they just accept everyone for the way they are. And I feel that if there's less focus on our differences and more, us being separated as people, we need to unify more and not keep everyone separate. You're in this box, I'm in this box, you're in this box. But I feel that if there is a policy implemented, it should have more involvement with the parents. I feel that it's definitely not the school's place to talk to a child about their sexuality, that the school should have no saying in that. I mean, I understand that they're all in school, we're all together, and I'm definitely not for bullying any kid of any walk of life, I don't care, but I feel like, especially when it comes to the sexuality and the new health curriculum that the state wants to implement, I feel that's over the line. I feel that that stuff should be saved more for the family and the parents and the children's doctors. I feel the school should have some spaces where kids can go and talk to, specific counselors but I feel that the children's sexuality should be left for the parents and the families at home.
Thank you, Maria. We'll move on to the next question, and Jesse, you're going to start this one. Parents and caregivers in Woburn have reported discrepancies in student experience and availability of programming options between elementary and middle schools in Woburn. And by between, I mean between the actual schools, not between like the tier of elementary and the tier of, but I'm talking about the specific schools. These discrepancies exist for a variety of reasons. What do you see as an equity challenge here in Woburn, and how would you go about addressing it?
Sure, thank you. First and foremost, I think that kids going from elementary to middle school, regardless of what middle school you go to, regardless of what elementary school you went to, you should have the same opportunities. There shouldn't be a discrepancy that my kid went to the Malcolm White and now they're going to the Kennedy, and there's a disconnect there. I think it should be the same for all. We're all students in the same district. We all deserve the same access to clubs or education or extracurriculars that you do outside of school. It shouldn't really be based on what school you went to. I'd have to dive a little deeper into it to really understand what differences these parents have seen, because I'd really like to know, especially someone as a potential school committee member. I'd like to see why that's happening and how we might be able to best solve it. I think knowledge is power. I think we talk to the principals, we talk to the teachers and the parents and really understand what these differences are, and then how we as a school committee, or maybe it's boots on the ground as the principals at the school, can really fix that issue to make sure that these kids have equitable access to anything that it is involving school, whether that be, again, a club that they participate in at school or a math class that they go to.
Thank you, Jesse. James Austin. Absolutely. We're talking about, I'll actually repeat all of it. Parents and caregivers in Woburn have reported discrepancies in student experience and availability of programming options between the various elementary schools and middle schools in Woburn. These discrepancies exist for a variety of reasons, and we're asking, what do you see as an equity challenge here in Woburn, and how would you go about addressing it between the schools?
That's a great question. I would say that all schools should have the same curriculum. I am mindful that depending on who you have as an educator will bring forth whatever subject you're teaching differently. So that could be a challenge school to school. But as far as different curriculums, I don't think that's okay. I think all students and all teachers should have the same curriculums to present to each child. How would I go about fixing it? I'm sorry, the question is put in 19. Can you repeat that last part?
Sure. Just talking about the equity challenges and whether it's, you brought up the example of curriculum, but you could also be talking about class size, as has been mentioned earlier this evening, the different field trips that some schools go on and others don't. Just talking about that type of equity between schools.
Okay.
If you want to just take 30 seconds to
Yeah,
wrap up.
understanding that some classes are going to be larger based on population of the school is understandable, but and obviously money. It's so much there to talk about. It's almost like to narrow it down into one. But I'll just go back to what I said previously. Was I think all schools should have the same opportunity as far as curriculum and education goes. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Pat Chisholm.
I believe the curriculum across the board is the same. I think that this probably is more directed to extracurricular activities that get done in schools and programs that might be done in school. And most of those programs are started by teachers. And I just would not want to stifle a teacher if they have a brilliant idea or if they want to bring a program into the school that they're willing to start up. And we've had that done in the past where they started something and it was used as a pilot program. And then we just dispersed it amongst other schools. But we have to have the staff that's willing to be able to do that stuff. And I would hate to have any staff feel that if they want to bring something forward and they're willing to do that for their kids and for their school, that they can't do it because it's not offered at all of our elementaries or both middle schools. But I do think that, sometimes people will look at certain programs, and I know the big thing used to be the Washington trip from the Kennedy to the Joyce, and that was the Joyce principal did not want to support that, and that's his school, and we have to allow them to make the decisions in their schools that they run to keep their schools running the way that they feel it's happening. And class size is something that we do watch all the time. And there are schools, the class sizes are smaller, but it's the demographics of that area. And so until we do a whole redistricting plan, and we can do that after I'm off the committee, several years, then that's the way it's going to have to be until maybe we can get these hotels and motels and office buildings that are developments in those areas and not let them go where the schools are already maxed out.
All right. Thank you, Pat. Ellen Crowley.
Yeah, I think this is a really important question. It's hard for me to understand exactly what the specifics are, but I assume that so in Woburn, there was a tension. We like to allow all the buildings to run themselves, and each building has its own autonomy. But I bet in the sense that we want all the buildings to run sort of autonomously, it has this problem of one building doing one thing and then another building not doing another thing. Anyways, what I think we should do to fix it, if it's truly an issue of equity, like I know, for instance, that some schools have after-school programming and before-school programming. So those learners are offered those opportunities. That, to me, feels like an equity issue. So we should be looking into out-of-school time for all of the buildings. I know that's not what the specific question is about, but I think that it's important that one building does not have more services and more opportunities for the learners in that building than another building, particularly because that could create equity problems. But not knowing what the specific issue is, I guess the other piece is that if parents really feel this way, I'm all ears. I know that the members on this table that are, if they make the school committee, if they continue on the school committee, you want to hear these things. You want to hear how the day-to-day life is, how learners are experiencing the schools on a day-to-day basis, so we can learn this stuff. That's why we're on the school committee. And that's why we have a very, very robust public comment at our meetings with Pat Chisholm made us make it open to everybody, so that we can learn these things and we can have this kind of dialogue. So,
Ellen, thank you. And just to repeat before you answer, Maria, just for you and Andrew's benefit, we're talking about the equity challenges here in Woburn, how you would go about addressing some of those discrepancies between schools.
In regards to curriculum, I do believe that all the kids should be learning the same thing at the same time. When it comes to education, they should all be learning. But, if there's a parent or a teacher who doesn't like that one program is offered at one school, step up, get it done, do what it's going to take to offer that program into that school. This way it's more equitable. It's going to require, within the staffing of the schools,
If you're a parent and your kid goes to school and you know that the school doesn't offer that, come to the school committee meeting. I'm a parent. I didn't like something. I started coming to the school committee meetings. I said something, and here I am now. I'm sitting on, I never thought I would, but you as a parent or as a teacher, if you want to offer something in the school, step up, get it done, do the research and the work that it's going to require to get these programs into the school so that everything's an even playing field. Each one of us every day, we have to dig deep. Like if you don't like it, do the work to get what it's going to get done to make the changes. We can't really blame the city or the thing all the time. It's we as the community, as the people, the constituents who live here, we're the ones, if we want to see positive things, guess who's got to do it? We do. We can't leave it just on the city. We're the ones that are going to have to take the lead and get the information and find out what it takes to get the job done so that we can offer these programs in more schools or whatnot. So.
Okay. Thank you, Maria. Andrew Lipset, you can wrap up.
So this is actually something that we've seen some improvement on over the time that I've been on the committee. We've been able to, for example, in our budgeting, some of the supply line items and things like that between different elementary schools, between different middle schools, were different for quite some time. And over the past couple of years, we've been able to sort of do some more joint budgeting, some more joint planning. Our principals are working together on school improvement plans to try to create sort of a more unified approach to the kinds of things that we want to see change at our schools. When we talk about extracurriculars, I'm of two minds. I think it's absolutely true. We do not want to deny any student in this district an opportunity because of where they live in the district. At the same time, I agree with Mrs. Chisholm that there's a certain level of autonomy for teachers and for school buildings that is important. Schools develop their own cultures. Teachers develop their own cultures. And we have to honor that, and we have to sort of think about what are the programs and where are the equity issues that we really need to address, and where are the ones where these are schools that are sort of figuring things out for themselves. These are schools that are trying something new. I think the idea of a pilot program is great. I mean, if a school tries something that works and a school tries something that gets their kids excited and that staff likes, that parents like, and there's an opportunity to bring that to the district, the committee is going to be all ears. I know the administration will be all ears. Like, these are things that we want to be able to do. Funding is always an issue. This is something where the PTO has often played a role as well. There are sometimes, unfortunately, some funding issues in terms of PTOs. There are some of our schools that have, a parent base that isn't quite as capable of funding, major programs as others. That's something that I think we do need to take a look at. Are there enrichment opportunities that we could potentially bring into a school committee budget?
Thank you, Andrew Lipset. Two more questions. We'll come back around to you to start this time, James. Around 17% of Woburn students with disabilities attend substantially separate school programs, including out-of-district schools, because they require supports outside of what Woburn Public Schools are able to offer. So, how can Woburn Public Schools develop robust in-district services for students with disabilities? And how can we promote inclusion in the community for students who are already attending other schools? So it's a two-part question. Again, I'll go over that last part again. We're asking, how can Woburn Public Schools develop robust in-district services for students with disabilities? And how can we promote inclusion in the community for students who are attending school out of district?
I feel like this goes back to a question we mentioned earlier about funding. We have to be strategic and maybe think outside the box. Obviously, to have students receive services in city, we need money. Again, I think leaning on other cities, other towns, and kind of learning from them and seeing what their best practices are. I'm not a fan of necessarily doing everything from scratch. I feel like we can learn from others, and if we learn from others, I think each one teach one, and we can grow together. Grant writing is again a way to implement programming for the city. I know nobody wants to talk about taxes, but I have mentioned to a councilman, I said maybe raising taxes, and those that are a certain age, maybe they can be grandfathered in to not have their taxes raised. And maybe some people can apply to keep their taxes low. So that way we can have the funding, we can have the money needed. As a dad, when I know my kids need, I will do what I need to do to go find that money to provide for my home. Can you repeat the second part of the question?
Sure, just talking about promoting inclusion for students who are placed out of district currently, not in Woburn Public Schools, but in out-of-district placements.
Yeah, I guess same for that. I would love to hear others. I feel like going first is challenging, but I think in order to do anything, we need proper funding, and that's the reality of everything. Otherwise, we have to get, as somebody mentioned earlier, people to volunteer, offer their services, offer their skill set to be able to provide the services that our young people need. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Pat Chisholm.
It would be great to be able to do all these things, but first of all, we're going to need a lot of money. Second of all, we're going to need space. Maureen Ryan, who is special ed director, is always looking for adding programs into the school system, but we need the space in order to do that. And we have sent programs and moved programs around because we've run out of space in the schools. That's why it's important. And in personnel, we have a hard time getting some special ed teachers now and some positions filled because they're just not out there. People are not applying for these jobs. And it's frustrating, and she does a great job of trying to bring as many kids home as she possibly can. And I know that that's important to just the parents, the families, and the siblings of these children, that they should be in the same schools as their brother and sister, if at all possible. But it definitely comes down to space is a huge part of it. So with our feasibility study that we should be diving into soon, hopefully we can make more space available and maybe even do an early preschool type of program that would relieve some of the elementary schools so that we could keep some of these kids back home. And I think that would be important, but that's going to be a drawn-out thing. We need people to speak up and come to our meetings and make sure that we hear this. And the inclusion part of it, I think that every kid needs to know, and every parent in the city needs to know that if you have a student in our school system, they're included and should be included, and if they're not, then we need to hear about it. So I just think that that's something that we really need to do, and maybe curriculum, we can send it to our subcommittee and dive into this a little bit better. But I do think that I don't want any family to feel that they are not welcome to come to any events in our school or take part in anything we need to have. And I would love to bring some of these kids home because it's a huge part of our budget, and I want the kids to feel that they're part of Woburn. So I think that that's something we can do, and you've given us something to think about.
Pat, thank you. Ellen Crowley, just to repeat, we're talking about kind of in two parts, developing robust in-district services for students with disabilities, but also promoting inclusion for the community of students who are attending outside of district.
Thank you. I love how Pat is assigning things to subcommittee meeting right in real time.
There you go, Andrew.
I think it's a great use of taxpayer money to hire consultants to look at our in-district programs. We bring in people like Dot Lucci and Michelle Garcia-Winter to look at our programs and determine what we need in order to deliver better instruction. I thought that was a good use of taxpayer money. We need to make sure we're using evidence-based methodology in our programs that is matching what children need. Certainly we need to make sure that we're producing very good assessments so we know exactly what kind of needs children have and how to best address them in our in-district programming. And also in-district programming is just so crucial to the fiscal aspects of school committee, but also to the child themselves, is because they're included in their own hometown. So I think it's a really important endeavor. And that's why I've very, very, very strongly fought for in-district programming since I've been on the committee. The pre-mentioned BCBAs, which are board certified behavior analysts, are really key to keeping children in the district. And so we've been able to, over the years, hire 10. And I want to state again that in 2014, we had uno. So we've been able to develop our staffing that allows us to serve our children. As for making sure children in out-of-district placements are included, I think it's just a simple answer. We need to include children in out-of-district placements. They are Woburn Public School students, 100%. Maybe they need to have communication with the schools and to make sure that they're invited to all the school functions. Because, and again, as Ms. Chisholm said, I think if that's happening, we want to hear about it. I think it could just be a communication fix.
Okay.
I think that's-
Thank you, Ellen. Maria Delagrati.
Okay, can you just repeat the two parts?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, this is a two-parter. So we're asking, how can Woburn Public Schools develop robust in-district services for students with disabilities? And how can we promote inclusion for the community of students that go to school outside of the Woburn district?
So, let's see. So the programs, are they, the programs you're talking about, are you just talking about programs pertaining only to students with special needs?
In this particular instance, yes.
So, I mean, as a taxpayer, as a homeowner, I surely do not want my taxes increased. I think with the way things are with inflation, everything's just so expensive. So as a taxpayer, I would totally be not in agreement with having my taxes increased just to have programs added for a particular students. I feel like if the programs are going to be added and our taxes are going to be, the programs should benefit all the students of whatever. But I know this is pertaining to special education. And, so let's see here. Oh, this is difficult. The programs would be great. I don't know, maybe there's ways to get private funding, especially if they're just going to be programs that are added to the school system just for a particular group of students. I feel like, the money comes from all of us, from our own, from paying taxes within the city. But, in the second part of the question, the students that go to schools in other districts should definitely be involved in programs that we offer through the city. Just because they don't go to school here, it doesn't mean that they can't utilize the programs that are offered.
Maria, thank you. Andrew Lipset.
There's I think, a lot of parts to this question. There are obviously two different parts to this question. There are a lot of parts to this question. First of all, I want to make it clear, these are our children. These are our students. We have a moral, a legal, and ethical, and all kinds of responsibilities to do absolutely everything that we can to make sure that they have the best education possible in the Woburn Public Schools, or if they require out-of-district placements, in those placements. We also can't pretend that we live in a bubble on this. I think oftentimes in Massachusetts school districts, we tend to only see to the borders of our community. Costs for out-of-district placements have skyrocketed statewide. Costs for staffing or staffing pressures have skyrocketed statewide. While I have a captive audience, if anyone's looking for a new job, I can offer you one that is, a challenging and incredibly rewarding job as a teacher or a para or a support professional in our schools. And we need people. We need good people because we have a lot of openings for kids who have a lot of needs and need a lot of help. And so, when we are talking about what we can do to better our circumstances with out-of-district placement, one of those is to do exactly that, to strengthen our systems in district, to make sure that we have the staff we need, to make sure that we have as Mrs. Chisholm mentioned, the space that we need, to make sure that we are expanding our programs to service the needs of every kid that we can service in district. There are going to be kids who have medically fragile needs that we simply can't manage, that no public school can. But beyond that, we have a responsibility to try everything that we can, including looking for more funding where we can, to increase those programs to bring our kids back into district, to keep our kids in district in their homes, near their homes. When it comes to equity, I think we've seen this is something where we absolutely have to do better. There's no question that we have to do better. We've seen some issues pop up here and there, some that we've been able to solve, some that have sort of persisted. Communication is a big part of it. We need to make sure that we are looking at our communication systems so that all of our families are hearing what's going on in all of our schools. We need to make sure that we are communicating with out-of-district families, that they're invited to events, that they're treated like every single other member of this community is. Because we are all one community. These are all our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, and we'll wrap up with Jessie Wetzel.
Thank you. I think first and foremost, we should try to keep these kids at home. The law states the least restrictive environment, and that starts here. And then it moves on from there. Of course, we can't accommodate every student in district, but we shouldn't not accommodate a student in district because we don't have staffing. That's not a reason to send a student away. So I think we should do whatever we can to get those teachers and staff here in order to accommodate as many students as that we can in district. It costs more money to send a student out of district than it does to hire teachers to come here and teach that student. Maybe that's partnering with other educational schools and saying, hey, we have this program in Woburn, we need this many teachers for this student. Would you be interested in coming to work for us? Maybe it's community outreach in that way, that Woburn can help get more teachers here. I know it's a problem nationally, a teacher shortage. So I think we need to be creative about how to bring those teachers here and incentivize those teachers to come here. And in terms of making sure students that are out of district feel comfortable and able to come to things that are happening in district. So whether that be, a PTO is hosting a fundraiser in the evening, we need to make sure those parents are receiving that communication in whatever language it is that they speak. And maybe we partner with the SEPAC, and the SEPAC can be a means of communicating to these families to make sure that kids and families feel welcome to come back to school after hours to participate in a plethora of events that the school happens to be holding. Thank you.
Jesse, thank you. One last question, and I've played around with the language a little bit to leave it a little vague and a little open-ended so that you can use this last question as a means to give any closing comments you might have, but we do ask that you keep it to the 2 minutes. And I guess we'll start with you, Pat Chisholm, this time since you're up. So what is the main obstacle to ensuring all of Woburn students have their needs met?
Money.
Imagine if
Now
she
I'll
just
go to
ends
my
it there.
closing
She's just like, that's it,
statement.
done.
Now I'll go to my closing statement. Because everything does come down to money, whether we want to build a new school, whether we want to add more teachers, whether we want to bring in new programs, new educational incentives, it all comes down to money. So, I think that's our biggest thing. But so I will do with my little closing, and I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I think this was great, and for all those at home, I'm hoping that you're learning a little bit about all of us. I have, over my tenure, worked alongside many dedicated school committee members, as well as 3 different superintendents and several members of the administration staff. I feel I've always had a great working relationship with our city councilors and our mayors. The budget for the next year is going to be, at a minimum, a challenge, and I think it will take people at the table that have experience dealing with budgets and building a positive consensus to keep the system heading in the right direction. With the reduction of this ESSA grant of $1.8 million, which holds vital positions, at least I believe that they're very vital, there will be some hard choices to be made. I have been involved in many budgets. Some have been easy, some have taken a lot of discussion and debate, and some have been downright miserable. So we have to make sure that we can stay open communication with City Hall and all of our council people and make sure that they know that we're having difficulties meeting. I will state that I am a strong supporter that we do not add user fees for our students. We are very lucky to be one of the few communities who do not ask families to pay for sports, extracurricular activities, band, or AP testing. We are a community who have had strong school support from our taxpayers, and we need to be fully aware that as we prepare our budget. Our schools are opened each and every morning by our dedicated staff who meet your children and do an outstanding job providing the best education that they can. Their support, care, and love for their students is shown each and every day. We must keep open lines of communication and transparency with our unions so that we can work together to bring out the very best for our students and staff alike.
Pat, thank you. Ellen Crowley.
Question again?
The main obstacle to ensuring all of Woburn students have their needs met.
Well, I'm going to second Ms. Chisholm and say that, the funding resources coming from the local, coming from the state, and coming from the federal government. As we know, federal government does not reimburse special education costs the way that we would like them to. So therefore, the cost of special education often falls to the state and the local. That is a problem because, as we all know, it does not promote equity in a school district to have to constantly use a scarcity model for funding. Secondly, I would say that the growing mental health and behavioral crisis among children is a very big barrier. So therefore, we need to make sure that we are fully staffed in therapeutic supports in all buildings to make sure that we can navigate this crisis together. Obviously, we had some new arrivals come to Woburn in late August, and I think that is a challenge, but also an opportunity to embrace new deeper experiences of inclusion in our community. I think a barrier that no one has identified tonight is the fact that we live in a little bit of a social services desert in Woburn. The reason why I ran for mayor in 2021 is that I became very frustrated that I felt a lot of the social services and a lot of the diversity, equity, and inclusion work was falling on the school system. And I didn't see a community work being done in those areas. And I certainly didn't see a government that supported the initiatives that we were doing in the school system. For instance, housing instability has a deep impact on a school system. And yet it doesn't appear as though the city is always supporting things such as affordable housing. So anyways, I think that there are community things that we can do to tackle the barriers in the school system, but also we as a school system need to deal with the funding issues.
Thank you, Ellen Crowley. Again, Maria Delagrati, what is the main obstacle to ensuring all of Woburn students have their needs met, and any closing comments that you have?
Obviously, like we said, money. But I think that's everybody's problem, right? That's everyone's issue. And I think, what's happening in our homes, our home and our family structures is, I feel, if we, have good family structure and I know not everyone is able to, but I feel like, that helps improvement on the students and the city as a whole. And then what was the second part of the question?
Just any closing comments that you have.
I just did a little closing statement. This is very nerve-wracking, by the way. This is something that's very new. This is the first time I've ever been questioned, and so excuse me if my answers were very short sometimes, but there's a lot to learn doing this, and I am somebody who's willing to learn. I learn bit by bit, and I learn by doing. So if I didn't know the answers to a lot of the things, I'm just telling you now that if I do get into the school committee, when I do, I am going to be somebody who's going to give it my all, and I'm going to put my effort in it 100%, and I'm going to learn the ropes and learn the way the city works and the school systems work better with the funding and how all that comes into play. So if I didn't know everything yet, doesn't mean I'm not putting my effort in later to learn everything. But I just also wanted to say, once again, thank you for having us tonight. Thank you for doing this for us. And I'm looking forward to working with anyone on this panel tonight, and the school committee candidates up here tonight on this panel, to see where we can help pave new ways for the Woburn Public Schools and to catapult our schools in a positive direction. I ask that the voters of Woburn to do their research about each of us candidates here tonight. Get to know all of us candidates, not just for the school committee, but for all of us, for all on our local elected officials.
Maria, thank you.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. No, it's okay. Andrew Lipset, again, asking what the main obstacle is to ensuring all of Woburn students have their needs met, and any closing comments that you can fit into 2 minutes.
I hate to be repetitive, but the answer is still money. I think that's a short word that covers up a whole lot of different things. We have had difficult budgets. We're going to have more difficult budgets. We're going to have a difficult budget this coming spring. The school committee is in a unique position. It is our job to interface between the community, the schools, and the city to advocate for what our kids need. And our kids need. We have a community that is changing, that is growing, that is adding students with a diverse number of experiences, backgrounds, and we have to be able to meet those needs. We have to be able to lift up these kids. We have to be able to have the programs, have the staff, have the resources to do right by every single child who comes through our doors, or we're not doing our jobs. And unfortunately, we have all of these responsibilities, and we don't control the money. And so that gives us a difficult position. So it is our role, I think, to be advocates at the city level. We need to push. We need to make sure that our city leaders know the kinds of things we need. This is something that I've done consistently in my time on the committee. I've been one of the members who has pushed back against what I've seen as unnecessary either reductions or certainly reductions in the budgetary number. I've advocated for staffing. I've advocated for programs. I've advocated for resources, and I'll continue to do so. But we need to make sure that we are really doing the best that we can to make those pushes for the kids that need the most help. Thank you.
Andrew, thank you. Jesse Wetzel, the main obstacle to ensuring all of Woburn students have their needs met. Any closing comments that you have?
Thank you. So, as already said, money, absolutely. More the better, really. I think we really need to fight for Woburn's right to win. Again, we're a diverse city. We qualify for a lot of money, and we need to get that money in for our kids because they deserve that. They deserve access, just like everybody else in the country, to every opportunity available to them to make them the best adult they can be and a productive member of society. I also think that we need to do some healing as a community after this past year. I think the kids know that as well. Even little ones, my oldest in first grade, we were at some of the things that happened this past year, and she kind of has an understanding. And I think as a community, we really need to come together, work together, and heal. And that healing process then can help better our students inside of the classroom and help us better ourselves as a community. And I think we really need to invest in our technology in Woburn. One of the ideas I floated by a few people is a tech center. I know that costs money, but we are surrounded by a ton of different technology companies that also have money. Maybe we go after them, and this tech center can be a place where kids can learn about robotics. Maybe they go in there because they are just having a bad day and they need to calm down and play a video game. That's fine. But it's a place that they can go and learn and practice skills that might help them in the future. So an idea I'm throwing out, but I think that it could really help our students and help our community, and it can be open to the community, really. It doesn't have to be just open to students. It could be anyone that wants to come in, and maybe it's at the high school and has a separate entrance. But healing and just, right to win funding for our kids and our community. Thank you so much, everybody at the SEPAC and those watching and those in the audience. Thank you.
Jesse, thank you. And James Austin, you got the luck of starting us all off, or you get the luck of wrapping us all up. The main obstacle to ensuring all of Woburn students have their needs met, and any closing comments that you'd like to share.
I feel like I would like to piggyback off everyone else. I'll just say it a little different. We need moolah. I know. I like what Jesse said on healing. And one thing I've learned from working with traumatic people is that we need community. And you can't spell unity without community. So this is something that I believe Woburn is good at, but I also think within the last several years that there's been a hiccup and there's been some pushback between one another. And I would love to see more connection between the leaders, school leaders, community members, just folks of the community to come together. I think it's really important for our young people to see us come together. Shameless plug. That's why I organized this kickball event coming up. I believe in community. I think it's important to come together. That way we can see our differences and accept our differences, but also celebrate where our similarities lie. Again, the reason I'm running, it was fueled from anger, but as I have dug deeper, I see that there's more that's needed besides fighting for racism, discrimination. I see that we need a bridge. Our parents really need to be bridged between the schools. I will agree with Marie as far as some of our parents, we need to step up a little more. And I'm stepping up out of my comfort zone again to be here. We need to step up and support our teachers. Our teachers really need help. And there's only but so much our teachers can do. And if we can grab a group of men that are willing to walk these halls of the high school or some school and just offer support, maybe just a little morale to our teachers. Again, the unity, I think it would improve our city. And I'll close with that. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you to all of our candidates tonight. Let's have a round of applause for them. And let's continue the round of applause for SEPAC Secretary Jennifer Young, who has been raising and lowering timing cards all night long. Keep us all on time. That's all for tonight's forum. We'd like to again thank the candidates for their time and their thoughtful answers. Again, thank Woburn Public Schools for their support for tonight's event, and thanks to our friends at Woburn Welcomes, especially Sheila Newman, who was kind enough to volunteer with us out front tonight. And we encourage you in closing to take a SEPAC flyer on your way out, or if it's easier, just scan the QR code. You'll get our monthly newsletter. Our next event, just a quick plug, is going to be held virtually on Tuesday, November 14th at 6:30. The reason it's a virtual event is because it's a basic rights workshop presented in conjunction with the Federation of Children with Special Needs. The topic is understanding the IEP. So if that's a topic that speaks to you, then we'd love to have you join us. You can get the link to register on our website, which is woburncpac.org. On behalf of our president, Julie Cotton, our secretary, Jennifer Young, my name is Adam Chapman from the Woburn SEPAC. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and do take care.